Welcome. It's awesome to have you here. I have a special guest, Andrew Tucker, with me today. How are you, Andrew?
I'm very well. Delighted to be here. Thanks.
That's good. Now, you're better known as the Virtue Coach. So I'm just going to give you a quick little intro if you haven't come across Andrew before. Andrew works with business leaders and parents. He actually enables Christian leaders to accelerate their personal excellence by aligning virtue with achievement, which sounds really cool, Andrew. So tell me a little bit more about the work that you do and how you actually got into this space, because what does it mean to be a virtue coach?
Thanks, Amy. It's something I aligned on a few months ago, really, as a title, to be honest.
Yeah.
So I work with a variety of people, really very focused on the traditional Christian virtues of humility, justice, magnanimity, self-mastery, courage, and prudence. I've been doing it on and off for a couple of years, kind of flirting with the idea of doing it. And it's only really in the last, 6 months that I thought, you know what, I need to either do this, I need to either actually go all in or just move on.
Yeah, fair enough. And what was that trigger for you when you decided that it was like now or never? What was some of the things behind that?
I've worked in government for too long, 20 odd years. And I've done a variety of things, and frankly, I'm very good at it. I do it very well, and I took a few years out about 10 years ago. When I say I took a few years out, I was still doing it, but I was doing it whilst attempting to do other things. I was actually trying to be a football coach.
Oh,
is it football? Is it football in Australia or soccer?
We do say soccer, but I lived in London for a couple of years, so I did have to get converted to saying football. But if we were in Sydney, Andrew, everyone would say soccer.
Okay, well, I'll send you out to convert them then.
Yeah.
But I actually spent about 3 or 4 years trying to be a football coach. I'd played at a fairly decent level for a while, and this is actually one of the things I've found really useful down the years, is even if I am choosing not to do something, that is a proactive choice rather than just kind of letting it happen and not doing it just by default. But I did that for a few years, and then I got married and kids came along, and I kind of had to decide, am I going to do this full time or am I not going to do it? Because 2 evenings and weekends completely out, and a full-time job wasn't realistic. So for a variety of reasons, I actively took the choice that I was going to focus on being a civil servant, get as far as I possibly could with that, and that was going to be me. And then about, 3 or 4 years ago, my responsibilities at work doubled overnight. It was very unexpected. The pay didn't, by the way, but everything else did. And I started thinking, you know what, I need to start thinking properly about leadership and about coaching. And because up until that point, I just, without much thought, taken a fairly haphazard approach to it. It worked at times, but I hadn't given any thought to it. And at the same time, for the first time ever, I found myself hitting a bit of a ceiling at work. And I'd kind of, if I'm honest, I'd viewed myself as inevitably rising to the top. Not really giving much thought as to why, but it was just going to kind of happen. And up until that point, that's kind of what, and I hit a bit of a ceiling, and it really forced me to think, okay, I could continue working in it. Is it what I want? Is it what I want? I kind of concluded, actually, I am pursuing this for entirely the wrong reasons. Because it had to do with self-image, and a self-image I'd had for a very long time about what success was.
Interesting.
And it was, these ideas of what success is come from any number of places. It comes from experiences, it comes from childhood. At one level, actually, it came from, I gave up drinking about 20 years ago because it was bad, put it that way.
Better without it,
but coming out of that, I had a really clear idea that I needed to, conform in order to succeed. There was a clear standard path which everyone could take, and I needed to start conforming with that. And I had that idea for a while. But this kind of hitting this ceiling and this struggle to go any further really forced me to review, well, what is success? What is success? And actually, I came to the conclusion that it was two or three things. The first was very focused around family and wanting to set the best possible example I could to my kids.
Yeah. And
just pursuing something because of an idea I had 15 years ago wasn't the example. I wanted them to see that it was possible to be something different.
Yeah.
The second one was very much around this idea of why I continue with it just because it's comfortable. When I had I was starting to develop this very clear idea that what I really liked doing was I wanted to have a very direct impact on individuals and groups to enable them to be better, to enable them to grow as much as they could. And I wasn't going to be able to do that in the environment I was in. And if I continue with that, I'm probably going to be unhappy. I'll be comfortable.
Yeah,
definitely. You know, it's not a bad life.
Yeah.
But I'm not. I will be dissatisfied, and I won't be providing the example for the people I want to provide the example to, and I won't be able to help the people I want to help.
Yeah, I think that's really, really common, Andrew. And I think thank you for sharing that, because I think for a lot of people, you know, that I work with and that, you know, as part of the tribe as well, many people have these big, you know, corporate careers, are very, very good and successful in that world. And you in the government space, having been there for 20 years, you know, you kind of know it. It's very familiar. It's very comfortable. And then to have that inkling that you want to launch your own business and head out into this brand new world, it can feel a little bit daunting and a little bit confronting as well. And so, you know, what were some of the things that shifted for you when you started to think about, you know, what success actually looks like for you in business rather than in your career? What were some of the early, maybe some challenges or things that you came up against when you made that decision?
So the biggest challenge, if I'm honest, it's still there at the back of my mind from time to time. Yeah. But the biggest challenge was definitely this I need to provide. You know, I need to provide for my family. I need to make sure they're okay. And I have a well-paid job which absolutely does that. And, you know, it's a bit of a fallacy, but there is an element of security to government work that doesn't necessarily exist anywhere else to the same degree. And ultimately, the aim is to give that up. You know, I'm kind of, I've only been doing this seriously for a few months. Yeah. I'm kind of in a slight halfway house of moving towards the point where I leave. Yeah. You know, and we've got a plan in place for that. But ultimately, the plan is to give that up. And that's scary. That's really scary. Because you're giving up. You're giving up something you know you were good at, and you know you're going to succeed at some level, certainly in terms of progress, and B, it's inevitably a risk. I mean, I'll talk a little bit about this when I get into the virtue, because being willing to take a risk is definitely one of the biggest things that successful people have. Yeah,
absolutely. And so what does that, when you think about like the plan forward, you know, with your business, because I know you've got one foot in and one foot out at the moment, but sort of making that transition, what are some of the things that you're most excited about when it comes to your business and the growth that you've had so far?
So there's two things. One of the things which I've developed recently, which came completely out of the blue, out of a random contact, funnily enough, on LinkedIn. Yeah.
Funny that.
Yeah, we will get into that, I'm sure. I've actually started working with schools. Yeah. Started developing a curriculum which will be accredited very shortly.
Fantastic.
And it's not aimed at, but I think it's primarily of interest to those in the sort of Catholic Christian arena, educational space, but very focused on an introduction to virtue, why these things will help you succeed in life. And by succeed, I don't necessarily mean, although I think this is a byproduct of it, I don't really mean money and external achievement. I think actually it's about the idea that you will work out how you can lead a fulfilling and contented life. And the money and the external success will be a byproduct of that, but aligned with inner values, for want of a better way of putting it. And I'm really excited by that because it's been really interesting to me that the actually, frankly, sheer joy, for want of a better way of putting it, the sheer joy I get going into schools and having these really interesting discussions with the kids as you work through the curriculum is great. And it just fills you with this real sense of excitement and potential and what have you. So that's one thing. The other thing which I found really exciting, particularly over the last few months, as I've started to take this more and more seriously and think, you know what, I need to do this as opposed to just want to do this. And that was quite a big shift. But has been just the sheer volume of people I've made connections with. Some of those have led to interesting discussions about being clients or not. Some of them, frankly, have just led to interesting discussions. There's a couple of people now who I would probably count as friends. Probably never going to have any sort of business relationship with, but nonetheless, just being open to those connections has shifted things significantly. And, you know, maybe I will at some point. Maybe it will shift into a different type of relationship, and that's good as well. But actually, just being that shift in mindset about, you know what, this is what I need to be doing has opened up opportunities almost by accident. You know, there's lots of actions I'm taking. I don't know where they're going to lead to. But being willing to just go with it has been a very different approach.
Fantastic. Yeah. So you're kind of attracting the people to you rather than having to be that pushy person out there in the market.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that I mean, that was an eye opener in itself. That it is possible to attract people as opposed to. I mean, one of the bugbears I definitely had about my idea of what it was to be in business. My idea of what it was to run a business was, well, you've got to be constantly bugging people. You know, you've got to be this pushy, annoying spammer type that you do come across.
You do. They're out there.
You really do. In fact, and I mean, I've had having started being very active on the platform. I've had quite a few like that approach me, and that's fine. You know, it's fine. They do what we do. But that's not me, and it's not what I want to be. But I don't have to.
No, it's awesome. Yeah, there's definitely a better way to do it, as you know, and it's working. You know, you're getting people, clients, connections, and this school program sounds awesome. You know, it really sounds like it fills your cup, which is great. You get to do the work that you absolutely love to do, which is awesome. And one of the things that I know is a little bit of a challenge, or actually probably a big challenge for a lot of people, including yourself and others, is finding the time. Right. Actually managing this thing called time, where we've got our, you know, full-time gigs. And I did the same thing, you know, being able to transition out from the corporate space. And there's that period in between where it just never feels like there's enough time in the day. So I'd love to hear from you, Andrew, how are you overcoming that, and how are you building the business and being able to manage both? And I think that I can add a few things of what I've noticed about how you do it, but I'd love to hear from you first around what's your attitude towards managing and prioritizing your time?
So, I mean, I've experimented quite a lot, if I'm honest. I mean, my first one was, I'm just going to focus on nothing else but this. And that didn't work. Leave aside the job I was doing at the time. It didn't work with family. It didn't work with anyone. It defeated the point of why I wanted to do this in the first place. Because frankly, aside from anything else, one of the things I want to get out of going into business is more time with my family, more time to do the things I love, and what have you. I've experimented with quite a few things. The thing I'm doing at the moment is around 30 minutes every morning. Is entirely focused on engaging with people who have reached out to me, people I see are quite interesting. No more than 30 minutes each morning. I then spend about 30 minutes. It's usually scheduled early evening, but it might be a different point in the day. About 30 minutes tidying up everything that's happened during the day. As in,
closing the loop.
Okay, this person's reached out to me, I better make sure I don't just ignore them. But those 30 minutes periods are absolutely key to stopping things getting out of hand. So that's the first thing. The other thing I've done, and I'm lucky in that my work have been fairly amenable to this, is I now have at least one day a week off. Which I really then use that time to focus entirely on coaching. The clients I've got at the moment, we might shift it occasionally. All the work's done on a Thursday. The coaching and learning that I'm doing for my own development, all of it at the moment is done on a Thursday. So that's been very helpful and seems to be working at the moment. I will need to shift again at some point as the business grows. And I think that
growing pretty quickly. I can see from the wins that you've been posting in the group.
I think so. I mean, I think there's some real scope for it. I've got a couple of pitches coming up in the next couple of weeks, which if they come off, it really is going to have to shift. Exciting. But and when it does, it will shift. And that's the other thing I'd say is there's a need to be fairly flexible about some of this. I mean, I would have always considered myself flexible. And in the civil service context, I probably was. But it's a very different context. It's very different, both in terms of pace and accountability.
I was just going to ask you that. How have you found the shift from very much one side of the spectrum to then launching into this entrepreneur world? And one thing I just wanted to make a comment on, Andrew, is I love the fact that you don't use time as an excuse. You prioritize your time, and like you said, you close out those loops and you schedule it in. And I just think that's been an amazing part of your growth and how much you have grown over the time. And I know that when we catch up on our calls, it is what time for you?
3 a.m.
3 a.m. exactly. So, I mean, that's awesome, because it just means that it's not like that forever. But sometimes in the beginning, you have to make those adjustments, those sacrifices, be a little bit flexible if you want it bad enough, And so I really admire that you've done that.
There's two things which really helped with the mindset shift straight off with the course. And one was just the idea of, I'm going to spend a bit of money on this. And it wasn't a ridiculous amount. But I'm going to spend some money just investing in the fact that I want this to happen. Rather than, because LinkedIn, I didn't know what I was doing. I knew I had to be active, didn't know how, didn't know what to do, didn't know, and frankly, it's proven a game changer, but it came because of the investment, not because that was the first step. And the other thing, funny enough, about the 3 a.m. thing, there's something really, really powerful about forcing myself up. And, I've missed the odd call, but generally speaking, forcing myself up at that time. There's something that has just shifted again in my mind. Well, why am I doing this if actually I'm only going to half-ass it? It somehow makes that not an option. Exactly. And I think there's, one of the things I talk a lot about with clients is the power of habit. And making a point and identifying things you can do regularly, which if you do them enough will shift the way you behave and the way you think and the way you act. And just that once a week, knowing I'm going to be up at 3 a.m. or 20 past 3 as it was this week,
hit the snooze
has shifted something internally for me. It's
awesome.
It's a quite remarkable process.
Fantastic. And so knowing what you know now, having been a part of the tribe for only a few short months, and you've made such great progress in that time, if you think back to if you had have said no to me, what would your life be like at this point, do you think, Andrew?
I'd definitely be poorer for it. I imagine that I would still be kind of messing about it. I wouldn't have really thought through, okay, how do I make this work? That was the point of signing up initially, was I just need some guidance on how to make this work. I just do. I there's some things I'd been doing in person with people, and that was great. And but it was never gonna. It was going to take years to make that scale properly, and I don't have years.
Yeah,
I mean, everyone's got years, but I don't. I don't want in 10 years' time to still be thinking, okay, I've got this next thing to do to make this happen. And so I think, one, I'd have less clients. Two, I'd still be kind of messing around the edges with no clear plan. But I was struggling a lot to come up with a plan which was going to work for me and work for others as well. And it's just focused it down.
Yeah.
And it's just made all the difference. I just decided, you know what? I'm going to really focus down on virtue and character. It's what I'm good at. It's what I enjoy. It's where I really seem to impact with people. So that's where I'm going to focus. Yeah. And it's difficult to put exact words on what that shift is.
Yeah.
But just what's happened over the last few months just demonstrates it. And I think without that, which was generated by signing up to the program, I would probably be doing exactly what I've been doing a few months ago, which was, yes, I want to do this. I'll try this or that with no particularly clear direction and still
figuring
be floating around in the ether. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's awesome to hear. And I think I can see that focus in you as well. When you're turning up and you've got that clear direction, it makes all the difference. So it's just night and day, since when we first started talking. So it's really awesome to see your progress. So let's just say over the next 12 months, Andrew, like, what do you really want to have happen in that time?
My the first clear goal I've got with the business over the next 12 months is that it becomes full-time.
Yeah,
it needs to be full-time, and
it'll be happening sooner than you think.
And it feels like it's moving in that direction, and all the activity suggests that it is. But that's the first thing, is I need to be doing this full-time. I think beyond that, what excites me most is just the sheer numbers of people there is the potential to help.
Yep.
And I've only had a glimpse of that as yet, but it's happening day after day. I'm speaking to more people. I'm connecting with more people. And I mean, the reason I'm doing this is because I've got this theory that an increase in virtue is what's going to transform society as a whole.
Things have happened, Andrew. You're allowed to dream big here. That's fine. I love that.
Absolutely.
You make an impact in the world. Yeah.
It's why do it otherwise? Why? Exactly. Well, what's the point if it's not going to have a positive impact somewhere? And I'll be honest, I really like the idea that I can be the catalyst for that. Certainly in the UK, this isn't talked about a lot in the UK. And I'm excited at the prospect of being a catalyst for this to go so much further, awesome. and to become the barometer by which people judge things by. And that, maybe that'll take years. I don't care.
Really. Well, it's a great goal to be working towards. Yeah. Absolutely. And it's just awesome to hear your story and hear where you're going to take this business, because you are making a huge impact in the world. And I'd just be really curious to hear your thoughts as well. Like, for anyone who might be in the same situation where they're kind of, thinking, should I dive all in? Should I not dive all in? And when it comes to either their coaching or consulting business itself or working with us, what would your advice be to them?
The short version is just do it. I don't know if when we first chatted, I was not exactly on the fence, but certainly wanted to think about it a little bit, and did, and dived in. I would say to anyone who's got an idea is you owe it to yourself to try. You owe it to yourself to try, because I guarantee that you will regret far more in 10 years' time looking back at the fact that you didn't than whatever the result, the fact that you did. This is something I've started chatting to my daughters about from time to time, is the idea that failure is a good thing. You know, to the extent that from occasionally I'll remind them to fail at something today. Failure is a good thing, as long as you learn from it and don't wallow in it. But I would say, if you, in 10 years' time, if you look back and think, I had this idea and I didn't give it a go, you're really going to regret that far more than giving it a go and seeing what happens. And then in terms of signing up to the tribe, it's if you want to, how quickly do you want to do it? If you want to do it quickly, then sign up. Because it's not just my experience. Everyone in there seems to have a very similar experience in whatever it is they're trying to do. Is that it just accelerates your ability to grow. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, it's been so awesome to chat with you, Andrew, and learn more about the big impact that you're making in the world and your business journey to date. And I know this is a to be continued, because there's so much more happening with you, and I know more clients coming through as well. So if there are leaders and parents that are listening to this who would like to know a little bit more about what you do, where can they go and find you, Andrew? And this is a total trick question.
So at the moment, the best place is on my LinkedIn profile, which is Andrew Tucker Virtue Coach. If you search for that, that's the first thing that will come up. They can email me at andrew@magnanimartuscoaching.com. That's difficult to spell. But again, it's on the LinkedIn page. We will, it shows you how early on in the process I am. I'm still in the process of getting a website started. There's a holding page there. Should be up and running in the next couple of weeks. But that will also be
really good proof point that you actually don't need a website to get clients, because you're big proof of that. So you just need your LinkedIn profile, which is what you've done, which is awesome. Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much, Andrew. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Enjoyed it.